Here's what a Republican said about some of his colleagues in their desperate attempt to defund Obamacare through a government shutdown. Lemmings with suicide vests. That's Congressman Devin Nunes of California. They have to be more than just a lemming because jumping to your death is not enough. You have this group saying somehow if you're not with them, you're with Obamacare. If you're not with their plan, exactly what they want to do, you're with Obamacare. It's getting a little old. I'm a liberal. Little confession, and I'm inclined to think Republicans are crossing into extreme new territory by holding up government funding after losing an election to destroy a signature piece of legislation of the country's current majority party. A piece of legislation that was passed by both houses, signed by the president, deemed constitutional, and extensively litigated in the last presidential election. One whose main goal is to give millions of Americans access to affordable health care. But there are Republicans just as perplexed as I am by the House strategy, and let's talk to some. Joining me now is Bruce Bartlett, former Senior Policy Analyst in the Reagan White House, former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Economic Policy in the George H.W. Bush administration, and Michael Lofgren, former staff member on the House and Senate Budget Committees in that position for 28 years, and author of The Party Is Over, How Republicans Went Crazy, Democrats Became Useless, and the Middle Class Got Shafted. Mike, being a Hill veteran, having seen a whole bunch of continuing resolution fights, budget fights, conference committees, are we dealing with normal politics here, or have we crossed into some kind of difference of kind?
No, this is not the 80s. This is something new. The party that I joined was the party of Lincoln, the party of Theodore Roosevelt, the party of Eisenhower. These were patriots all. They were for one nation, indivisible. Now what we have is an insurrectionist, neo-Confederate party that it seems to be dedicated to all kinds of apocalyptic outcomes. I don't know whether this comes from their fundamentalist religious outlook or whether it's just good fundraising for them among their base. But they are no longer a normal political party. They are an insurrectionist party that is bringing down the government.
Okay, no longer a normal political party. I have heard a lot of commentators say this, and I want to play devil's advocate and check my own biases here, Bruce. We have had shutdowns before. In fact, we have more shutdowns between, Tip O'Neill in the Democratic Congress and Ronald Reagan than we've had now. And there's also some who are arguing, Bruce, that the system, a constitutional system like we have, invests minority parties with a lot of power. And so this is a natural outcome of that system. What do you think of that?
Well, that's certainly true up to a point, but I think what we're really seeing here is a crisis of democracy, where one party believes its principles are so correct, so strong, and the other party's principles are so evil that we're essentially talking about God compromising with Satan, and you can't do that, and therefore they are justified in using any means necessary, perhaps even revolutionary or military means to get their way, despite the fact that the majority disagrees with them. They don't think that that matters in the slightest. The truth of their principles is the only thing that matters to them.
Mike, you said the word insurrectionist, and I want to ask you about the evolution from a normal party to what you called a not normal party. How did that happen? What is the rupture? What's the break that happened to create the conditions for a party to start acting in the way the current modern Republican Party is acting?
Well, I would say Newt Gingrich's speakership in 1995 was sort of a way station on the road to this, what we have now. But I would also say that the GOP as it exists now is kind of a Frankenstein monster that was created by the twin shocks of 9/11 and the financial meltdown in 2008. Because 9/11 sort of released a lot of unpleasant things in the American id, a kind of absolutism of good versus evil, a kind of totalitarian outlook. We've seen this with the NSA. And then the 2008 crash was similar to the Great Depression in many countries. We were lucky. We had FDR. Many countries went violently to the right.
Yeah, the twin traumas of those two crises is part of what I think forms the legacy of the breakdown in kind of institutional norms. Bruce, the other part of this people talk about is just the way in which the combination of a big win in 2010 and the ability to shape the way districts are controlled at the state level, gerrymandering, and also the kind of demographic divide between the House Republican caucus and the rest of America, in which increasingly the members of the House Republican caucus that want this strategy, their constituents don't look like the constituents that went to the polls to elect Barack Obama.
No, that's right. And one of the things that I would like to add to what Mike said, and I agree completely, is that there are deeper historical forces at work here, namely the takeover of the Republican Party by the South. We talk about Republicans taking over the South, but actually it's the other way around.
Interesting.
And the politics of the Republican Party today can best be understood as the politics of the Southern Democrats. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that this is a racial matter. I'm just saying that the nature of the politics is the same. And I've been thinking a lot the last 2 days about a term that you're probably familiar with called massive resistance, which was a term that was used in the 1950s to people who opposed the Brown versus Board of Education decision and used any means necessary, constitutional, legal, illegal, whatever it took, to fight that the desegregation of the public schools. And that, in that sense, the Republican politics of today are the same as the politics of the Southern Democrats of the 1950s.
Rejectionism economist Bruce Bartlett, former congressional staffer Michael Lofgren. I should note that